Hey everyone, welcome grade 9 students. Today, we are diving into a truly fascinating interconnected web that literally makes up our entire world. We're going to be talking about Earth as a system, specifically looking at energy, matter, and life. I'm absolutely thrilled to be your guide today as we take all those separate pieces of science you've been learning and finally snap them together into one massive, beautiful puzzle. So get ready because we're going to look at our planet in a completely new way today. All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to start small by tracing your lunch, then we'll zoom way out to Earth, our giant system. After that, we'll cover weather and energy, discuss human impacts, and then, yes, wrap up with a pop quiz and some solid revision and mastery to get you totally prepped for your exams. Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, Tracing Your Lunch's Elements. To really understand global systems, we don't actually need to look at a globe right away. Just picture your last meal. Maybe it was a nice warm plate of roti and dal, or perhaps some idli and chutney. Have you ever thought about where the actual physical atoms in that food came from before they ended up on your plate? It's pretty wild. Let's break it down. The carbon in your food, it originally came from carbon dioxide just floating around in the air, which plants pulled in through photosynthesis so they could grow. And what about the nitrogen packed into that protein-rich dal? That nitrogen was literally pulled from the atmosphere down into the soil. That happens either by tiny bacteria doing the heavy lifting or by humans using industrial fertilizers in something called the Haber-Bosch process. Either way, the plant's roots absorb it. Nature is basically the ultimate recycling system. We call these biogeochemical cycles, and it's simply matter constantly looping between the living and non-living parts of Earth. Now, let's clear up a massive misconception. I hear this all the time. Students think, oh, plants create energy to grow. But scientifically, no way. Energy cannot be created out of thin air. The scientific truth is that energy flows. Life on Earth is powered by a constant flow of energy, mostly coming straight from the sun. Plants don't make energy, they're just master converters. They catch that solar energy and convert it into the chemical energy that you eventually eat. Moving right along to Section 2. Earth, our giant system. So your lunch is really just a tiny snapshot of energy flowing and matter cycling. But the entire Earth operates on these exact same principles. Life here isn't just some random collection of plants and animals. It's powered by a massive, constant, interactive flow of energy and matter across the whole planet. And this brilliantly illustrates what I mean. We don't just have energy coming from the sun up above, driving the water cycle and the weather. We also have intense heat coming from the Earth's interior, fueling volcanoes and physically shaping the land. Chemical reactions are constantly happening all around us, in the air, the water, the rocks. The mountains, rivers, cities, farmland, the whole shebang belongs to one massive Earth system made up of interacting spheres. Let's actually define one of those major spheres right now, the geosphere. When scientists talk about the geosphere, they mean all the solid stuff. The rocks, the soil, the landforms, and the hot interior of the Earth itself. To picture it, think of the massive rocky Deccan Plateau down south, or the shifting sands of the Thar Desert. Those are prominent physical features of our geosphere, and they interact every single day with the air and water around them. All right, let's jump to Section 3, weather and the atmosphere. So the solar energy and internal heat we just talked about, they actually create our daily weather. Let's do a quick thought experiment. Assume we have two completely different planets. One is entirely covered by deep oceans, and the other is just covered by dry land. Now, we know the sun heats the equator way more than it heats the poles. Think about this for a second. How would the wind patterns on these perfectly uniform planets compare to the crazy, complex wind systems we have here on Earth, which is a bumpy mix of land and sea? Well, the difference in how water and land absorb heat completely changes how the air moves above them. Let's bring that concept a bit closer to home with another great question from your textbook. Imagine two mountains standing side by side. One is completely covered in lush green grass, and the other is just barren rock. As the sun beats down on them all day, would the temperature of the breezes coming off these two mountains be different? Pause and think about how those two very different surfaces handle heat. If you guessed that the breezes would be different, you hit the nail right on the head. Barren rock absorbs and releases solar heat much differently than a grassy surface does. The grass uses some of that solar energy for things like evaporation and photosynthesis. Because they heat up the air above them differently, they naturally create different temperature breezes. This just goes to show you exactly how surface cover affects the weather. And zooming out, all these weather phenomena, winds, storms, rainfall, happen because of dynamics in specific layers of our atmosphere interacting with the Earth's surface below. Which brings us to Section 4, Human Impacts and Climate. See, we are a part of this Earth system, but our human activities can seriously modify the climate. The balance of energy and matter is incredibly sensitive to change. So the crucial point here is understanding the consequences of our actions. For example, your textbook asks, how does the warming of the Arabian seawater affect the southwest monsoon in India? The monsoon is a massive weather system that literally millions of people rely on for survival. When water temperatures change, the amount of moisture the air can hold changes, and the way those monsoon winds behave changes. A shift in just one part of the system ripples through all the others. The text gives us several vital think-it-over scenarios to really ponder. If a massive forest is cleared, how does that alter the flow of a nearby river? Or what happens to coastal cities in India if glaciers and polar ice melt faster, raising global sea levels? And how would increasing carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere change the living conditions for microscopic plankton in the ocean? These aren't just abstract, faraway ideas. They are real, factual interactions happening between the spheres of our Earth system right now. Okay, time to test your mastery. Let's hit Section 5, Pop Quiz. Let's tackle a question straight from the Revise, Reflect, Refine section of your chapter. Choose the most appropriate option to describe the primary role of biogeochemical cycles in an ecosystem. Is it I, to provide food directly to all organisms? Is it 2, to recycle essential nutrients between biotic and abiotic components? Is it 3, to create new elements for use by living things? Or is it 4, to remove pollutants and toxins? Take a moment and lock in your answer. And the correct answer is option 2. The role of these cycles is to recycle essential nutrients between the living, or biotic, and the non-living, or abiotic components. Remember our roti and dal example? Nature doesn't create new elements from scratch. It recycles the carbon and nitrogen we already have. Absolutely fantastic job if you remembered our recycling analogy. All right, grab your pens and write this down. Section 6, Chapter Summary and Revision. Here are the absolutely crucial high-yield questions you need to master before your exam. First, make sure you can clearly explain the step-by-step processes of the nitrogen cycle and what would happen to life on Earth if it suddenly stopped. Second, you need to be able to explain the direct impacts of deforestation on both the oxygen and carbon cycles. And finally, be ready to identify other broader consequences of deforestation on the local environment, kind of like we mentioned with those river flows earlier. As we wrap up not just this chapter, but really your whole journey through this science textbook, I want to leave you with a concept the authors call New Horizons. When you first started this class, you were probably just curious about the world. But now, science is giving you the actual tools to look so much deeper into the everyday things around you. Like, take a look at a butterfly. Let's move in closer and see how this builds. When you apply scientific observation and use tools like an electron microscope, you discover these hidden, incredibly complex geometric patterns on that butterfly wing. What looks super simple to the naked eye is actually a structured, highly complex system when you really look closer. Which brings us to our final powerful thought. The text reminds us that science is not a collection of facts, but a connected way of understanding nature. It's really about thinking like a scientist, asking questions, finding evidence, and seeing the connections between our daily lives and the massive, swirling Earth system we live in. So the question I'll leave you with today is, how are you going to use this connected way of thinking to observe the world outside your window right now? Keep asking questions, guys, and keep exploring.